That's just larger, so it takes longer for it to dissolve in your dye bath. That's the only difference.
Also, because dye can be a little bit unpredictable sometimes, I don't think I've ever dyed fabric, even in small scale, that I haven't done 2 or 3 samples first. I mean, when you work with designers that are in New York, it's like they'll send you fabric and they're like, I need it to be a completely different color. We were doing Julius Caesar a little while ago, and they sent me orange fabric, and they said, this is what we could find. We need these to be the red togas. And I did 152 samples of various colors of red that I could mail off to New York, so the designer could say, I want this color red. Actually, she ended up saying, I want this color red with elements of this mixed in. Just do your best. But it's a process. I have a dyeing Bible that I keep at the shop. I know basically what colors I need to do muslin, what colors for flesh tones, what colors for different shades of people if I have to dye leotards. If you're going to be doing a lot of dyeing, keep track of what you've done.
Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan uniform. You familiar?
Yeah.
Okay, let's say you find a Cavalry Twill, perfect for the shell. Unfortunately, it's in khaki! And you can't get this stuff in white unless you're Paramount Pictures and can commission a fresh lot. You can over-dye it with a little magenta, or throw in a little yellow. Suddenly, you're a little bit closer on track. You know, just because it's already a factory color doesn't mean you can't work with it.
Sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't. Most of the times it doesn't.
This is 100% wool, so I mean, I was in a position of starting off with knowing what I was going with.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there are 2 types. I'm sorry.
It's on the handout.
10 a.m. Monday. I'm sorry. I know there are 2 types. One is a bleach. That's going to be. It is an option. It's more likely to damage the fiber. There is another version of Grit color remover, color whitener, or fabric whitener. That's less destructive. There's a product called Thiox you can use. You have to be very careful with it. I've actually had it turn wool brittle.
What it does is it like plumps up the fibers inside so that all the little dye molecules can escape. But if you do it wrong, it will plump them up so much they explode.
What problems have you had with the Rit color remover?
It just didn't lighten it very much.
I mean, aside from smelling really, really bad and turning everything yellow?
Better.
Better.
And it lightens unevenly.
One of the things I've noticed about color remover is I treat it like a dye. I mean, before I use color remover, I make sure the fabric is completely wet so it's as saturated as possible so the dye goes in. But it's like color remover does nothing, and then all of a sudden it just works. It took me about a minute and a half to dye a pair of gloves the wrong color burgundy, and since they were vintage gloves, I had to take them back to the lightest color I could possibly get to get them into that lighter shade. I sat the gloves in there, again, a minute and a half to dye them the wrong color. They sat for about 5 minutes, and it looked like the color remover would not work. I was about ready to throw it away. I got up, I walked to the table behind me, and I came back, and they were white, or they were, because it's like it does nothing, 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 then bam, it just starts working. So sometimes it can be the amount of time you leave in there. It's not great for fabric, but it's not overly destructive, so it might be okay just to like keep it moving around. Also, if your color is dyeing unevenly, it's important when using fabric that you keep the fabric moving in the dye. If it's a small piece of fabric and a large amount of water, usually it's going to take care of itself, but I sometimes have to dye, 100 yards of fabric at a time, and I am literally like the witch over the cauldron with a metal boat paddle, keeping it moving, because you can ruin an entire lot of dye if there's a good twist in there. I mean, I have started pulling yardage of fabrics out, and it's been like tie-dyed in the middle, because there was a twist in there nobody got out before they dropped it in. So keeping the fabric moving, making sure that you're just aware of the time, do samples if you possibly can. It's really going to be a lot of eyeballing. It's a lot like cooking. It's going to be testing and making sure if the fabric is really, really important to you, don't abandon it. Don't get up and go do something else while it's sitting in the dye. Even if it's going to have to stay in for a couple of hours, stay in there, keep it moving. Go back every 10 minutes, make sure it's sloshed around, make sure all the fabric is down in the water. Uneven dyeing happens But normally, and I'm not saying that you did this, but normally it's an operator error. If the fabric is good and saturate, and you keep it moving and the dye is correct, you usually will get an even dye.
There is an excellent online resource. There's a website. Paula Birch maintains a website on dyeing. BURCH. And she discusses all the different types of dyes, the dye removers. It's a definite go-to if you're just getting started. She discusses all the different chemicals and processes, things you never imagined you would be getting involved with.
I take the fabric, and I usually get an assistant. I get someone who's like not busy. We take the fabric, we stretch it out as best we can, and we try to load it in as flat as humanly possible, almost where it's going to like fold over itself. Again, my dye pot, I mean, I've got a huge dye pot because I dye 50 yards at a time sometimes, but it's, if you've got 4 or 5 yards, just be extremely careful. The fabric will be wet, so find a friend, stretch it out as far as you can, kind of lay it in, just make sure the big twists are out of it before you drop it in. I had an assistant one time who just grabbed fabric out of the washing machine after it had spun and dumped it in there. I came back from lunch and I had the most wonderful tie-dyed Julius Caesar ever. And then the crying began.
One thing you might want to consider.
How large is your dye pot? Okay, 20 gallons.
Try cutting out your pieces first.
Get a good stick, get a pole, get a dowel rod. Again, I will tell you if you're using a dowel rod, that wood is an absorbent fabric. I mean, is a fiber. And we used to have wooden clothespins in our shop where I had to hang something up to ombre dye it or something, and we'd put wooden clothespins on there, never thinking that wood absorbs fabric. So we had this wonderful white fabric draped across the top of the shop with these wooden clothespins that just last week had been used for red fabric. Came back and there's these wonderful little red dots all along the top of the fabric. Plastic clothespins. Something, if you're going to use a dowel rod, use it once and then go make something else out of it, because it will hold the dye if you're doing something white. I have a metal boat paddle that I bought from Dharma. There is a wonderful plastic boat paddle sold by most of your sporting goods stores. It's about that long. I think it's used for beating your kids more than it is for rowing a boat. But that would be perfect.
Kayaking, come on.
Beating your kids
Only
is called
you
kayaking? Is that the new term? What are you going to do? I'm going to go kayak the hell out of my kid.
You can also try and cut out your pattern pieces ahead of time. Well, I would say cut your pieces out with maybe an extra inch around the edges, zigzag or serge the edges. Therefore, you don't have one continuous piece of fabric that's likely to bind. You're going to have smaller pieces that are going to be more free-floating.
When cutting out the fabric ahead of time, make sure that you keep your dye Bible and know exactly what kind of stuff, because there's going to be several times that I've had to go back and re-dye fabric. I like dyeing it all at once in case I do need to recut a sleeve or I need to recut something to put back on a costume. If you're going to cut your pattern pieces up first, write down everything you do, down to the granule, down to the water temperature on your dye, so that if you have to recreate that dye process, you can do it exactly. Yeah, if you've got extra fabric, just throw it in there. I mean, really, if you bought just for that one lot, go ahead and just dye it all.
Now, I don't remember where I learned this either, but something that I do with my washing machine, even if I'm just pre-washing stuff, take it and if you have a serger, serge the two raw ends together, or if you have a machine, sew them together and then overcast them. I don't know why, but making it into a huge tube makes it twist less, especially in the dryer. I have done it. It seems stupid until you do it, and then you're like, wait, this kind of works. So try it yourself.
Yes, ma'am, the blue shirt.